When we think of superpowers, we often imagine their power as unbreakable. These countries shape the global economy, lead in political affairs, and create policies that influence billions of people. But history shows us a different reality. Superpowers don't last forever. Empires rise and fall, and what seems like unstoppable strength can crumble over time. In fact, this pattern has repeated itself throughout history, and economist Richard Wolff believes we can see the same signs of decline in modern-day superpowers like the United States. But what causes this? Why do the greatest powers eventually fall? Wolff's analysis helps us understand that there are clear patterns of decline that we should be paying attention to. Let's start with ancient Rome. At its peak, Rome was one of the most powerful empires in the world. Its army was strong, it had a booming economy, and its culture spread across Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. The Roman Empire controlled vast territories and had enormous influence over the ancient world. But over time, cracks began to show. Wealth became concentrated in the hands of a few elite families, while many ordinary Romans struggled with poverty. This growing inequality weakened the Roman economy and caused a lot of social unrest. Sounds familiar? Well, Richard Wolff compares this to modern times, especially in the United States, where wealth inequality has reached insane levels. The more wealth is concentrated in the hands of a small group of people, the less the rest of the population has to spend. This imbalance leads to stagnation and frustration among the general public. With time, the dissatisfaction will grow, and people will begin to question the fairness of the system. But economic inequality wasn't the only reason for Rome's decline. The Roman government itself became corrupt and inefficient. The Senate, which was once an influential and democratic body, turned into a group of politicians who cared more about their personal wealth than the well-being of the citizens. The government's focus shifted from serving the people to serving the interests of the rich and powerful. As the empire expanded, the leadership struggled to manage the growing complexity of its territories. Corruption and instability in the leadership made it harder for Rome to hold its vast empire together. By the time Rome fell, loyalty to the state was almost gone, and many citizens were more loyal to local leaders or foreign invaders. Wolff sees a similar breakdown in trust in political institutions today, especially in countries like the United States. Many people no longer trust their leaders to act in their best interests. Instead, they see politicians as part of the system that benefits only the wealthy and powerful. This loss of trust is dangerous because it weakens the bond that holds a society together. It's harder for a country to stay united and stable when the people do not trust their government. Another factor in Rome's decline was military overreach. Rome had one of the most powerful armies in the world. It fought wars and expanded its empire. But as Rome's territory grew, so did the cost of maintaining it. The Roman army was stretched thin, and it became harder to defend such a vast empire. Eventually, the cost of keeping the empire together became unsustainable. Rome's resources were stretched too far, and it could no longer protect itself from external threats. This pattern of military overreach is not exclusive to Rome. Wolff points out that other superpowers have made the same mistake. The British Empire, for example, controlled vast colonies around the world. However, maintaining such a large empire required huge military expenditures, and the costs of these wars became too much for Britain to handle. Presently, the United States has a military presence in nearly every part of the world, with over 800 military bases. This military spending has been a major contributor to the country's growing debt. Just like Rome and Britain before it, the US is facing the danger of overextending its military commitments. Economic strength is another key factor in the rise and fall of superpowers. Without a strong economy, even the most powerful nations are vulnerable. Britain used to be known as the workshop of the world. It led to the Industrial Revolution and exported goods to every corner of the globe. But as time went by, other countries like Germany and the United States caught up with Britain's industrial advancements. Britain's dominance began slowly slipping away. The United States has also experienced a similar shift. In the mid-20th century, the US was a global leader in manufacturing, but over the last few decades, many of its industries have been outsourced to other countries, particularly in Asia. This shift has led to a decline in the country's manufacturing sector and has left many regions with high unemployment and poverty. Wolff points out that when a nation loses its economic base, it weakens its ability to compete globally and also creates internal instability. Economic decline does not just affect businesses, it also leads to social unrest. In ancient Rome, growing inequality and economic hardship led to revolts and uprisings. In Britain, workers in factories went on strikes to demand better wages and working conditions. Today, Wolff notes similar patterns of unrest in the United States, with protests over racial inequality, income disparity, and poor working working conditions. People are frustrated with a system they believe is not working for them. This dissatisfaction can lead to a breakdown in social order, which will further weaken the country. When people lose faith in the system, it becomes much harder to maintain a functioning society. Innovation has always been an important part of a superpower's success. Rome's early dominance came from its ability to innovate in areas like military strategy and engineering. But with time, Rome failed to keep up with changes in technology and tactics. It became complacent and relied on old systems that no longer worked. In the same manner, Britain's dominance in industrial manufacturing was eventually overtaken by other countries that were quicker in adopting new technologies. Today, the United States also faces a similar challenge. Once a leader in technology and research, the US is now at risk of falling behind countries like China, which have rapidly advanced in areas like artificial intelligence and green energy. Wolff suggests that without a focus on innovation and adaptation, there is the risk of a superpower being overtaken by newer and more dynamic countries. Another issue that many superpowers face is resistance to change. In Rome, leaders were slow to recognize that their reliance on slave labor was unsustainable. The British Empire also resisted calls for decolonization and continued holding on to its colonies, even as global attitudes towards imperialism changed. In the United States today, there are many examples of resistance to change. One of the biggest challenges is climate change. Despite the overwhelming evidence of its impact, efforts to address climate change in the US have been slow and politically controversial. This same resistance to change can be seen in other areas, like healthcare, where the system is expensive and inefficient, but there is little political will to make significant reforms. Wolff argues that when a superpower refuses to change, it becomes more vulnerable to decline. But it's not just about decline. As one superpower falls, others rise to take its place. The decline of the British Empire paved the way for the United States to become the dominant global power. Today, we are setting the rise of China as a new superpower. China's rapid economic growth, technological advancements, and ambitious global projects like the Belt and Road Initiative are changing the global balance of power. According to Wolff, as China becomes more powerful, the United States will face increasing competition. The rise of China may even signal the beginning of the end of US world dominance. So, what does all of this mean for us? Wolff's analysis is more than just a look at the past. It's a warning for the present and future. The signs of decline are all around us. These are the same patterns that led to the fall of empires like Rome and Britain. The question now is whether the United States will learn from these lessons or repeat the mistakes of the past. The decline of a superpower doesn't just happen overnight. It is the result of many small decisions made over time, like prioritizing the wealthy over the rest of society, spending more on the military than education, and resisting necessary reforms. Wolff doesn't believe that all hope is lost. He argues that understanding the patterns of decline is the first step towards avoiding them. A superpower can choose to invest in its people, fix its political systems, and address the economic inequalities that threaten its stability. It can also choose to innovate and confront global challenges. The question now is, will the United States and other superpowers take these steps before it's too late? If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe.